All right, cool. Let's try to combine some of that stuff we talked about in the past with the modes of log minor and all that. Check out a song called Chelsea Bridge on page 76. All right. So yeah, E flat 7, and then we'll skip the extensions for now, and then it goes down to D flat 7. It goes back up to E flat 7, and back down, and then to B flat 7. Yeah. All right. And then it goes to E flat 7, minor 7, sorry. And then it goes to A flat 7. And then D flat major 7. And it actually says D flat 6, but it's just a major triad with a 6 added to it. You could actually do that by doing a typical bar chord and barring so far that you play the 6th fret of the high E string as well. D flat. Yeah. That's a very easy way to play a 6th chord when it's just a triad. Anyway, now there's a lot of dominant chords, right? E flat 7, is that functioning? Well, that's not super important. The fact that it goes, like, for example, I'll change key just so we can not give away the answer to this one, but if you had an E7 that went to an A chord of some kind, right? That A chord would be treated like a 5, the 1 chord. I mean, because the A is the 1 of E. Or rather, E is the 5 of A, for example. Now, strictly speaking, E7 would be the 5 of A major 7. But sometimes a person will play A minor 7 instead. Sometimes people will play A7 instead, and that'd be like a blues. That's really common. But it's still, for practical purposes, I still consider it a functioning chord. I think most people do. I could be mistaken. Maybe somebody out there says, no, technically it doesn't go to, but the point is, because it's a 5 going to a 1, the 5 it's 5 because it's dominant. You can use the altered scale or some altered scale, like you could use dominant diminished scale. Basically, you could use those tensions, the scales that have tensions, because they'll resolve nicely, and some of them will resolve more nicely. So a person could make a case about how when you go from a 5 to a 1 major, you'd use altered scale. If the 1 chord was a minor chord instead, then you would use dominant diminished and all that. But that's kind of like a later discussion. Basically, what you have to look at is the roots after acknowledging that you have a dominant chord. So E flat 7 is a dominant chord. Is E flat the 5 of D flat? No, so it's not functioning, right? Now, well, you said it wasn't functioning because it went to a 7 chord. But that's not true. If it was an A flat 7 chord, then you could have considered it functioning. You could have played altered over it if it was going to an A flat 7 chord. Yeah, I'll show you what I mean. Here's an E flat 7, and if it went to a 1, A flat, you could add alterations like this, because they would resolve. Cool? Okay. Yeah, it's the root that matters the most here. So D flat 7, is that a functioning chord? Right. Where's the first functioning dominant in this song? Yeah, B flat is the 5 of E flat. Cool. Kind of, but E flat isn't a dominant chord. And so, yeah. So E flat minor 7 to A flat 7. Well, that the question doesn't even come up. The question would come up and go A flat 7. Okay, is that functioning? It's a dominant chord. Is it a functioning dominant chord or not? It is, yeah. A flat is the 5 of D flat. Good. So now, what is E minor E flat minor in relation to D flat? Because we know that if A flat 7 is 5 of D flat, here we're in the key of D flat, right? Is E flat minor in the key of D flat? It would be. So that's a 2-5-1. Which is super common. Super, super, super common. All right. So then there's this little turnaround that goes C7 to B7 to B flat 7, and then it goes to E flat 7 at the beginning. So B flat 7 is the 5 of E flat. So it's got a 5-1 from the end of the beginning. See that? So that's going to be 5-1. No, well, harmonic is a different kind of minor, harmonic minor. But there's two modes of melodic minor that we were talking about a lot for dominant chords. Functioning, we use this mode. Non-functioning, we can use that mode. Altered was one of them. Yeah. Altered is a mode. The altered scale is a mode of the melodic minor scale. So for functioning dominant chords, we can use altered. Non-functioning, we can use Lydian dominant. All right. So what is Lydian dominant? It's a dominant with a sharp 4, right? It's Lydian with a flat 7, depending on how you want to look at it. So when you look at that first chord of the song, E flat 7, sharp 11. Sharp 11, that's pretty explicit. It's telling you that it's Lydian, but it's a dominant chord, so it's Lydian dominant. You know? So play E flat Mixolydian and sharp your 4. Or play E flat Lydian and flat your 7, either way. All right, now try it this way for a moment. You should start with your middle finger, then pinky, and then index, and then ring finger. Yeah, sharp 4, right? And then pinky for the 5th of the chord. And then index. And then middle. Oh, it's got to be dominant, yep. And then pinky. So far you got. Oops. Yeah. Oops. All right. Now, this is part of a shape we've learned before. Oops. Where the high E string is going to go 5, or we guess we got to do the B string. B string is going to be 6, 8. High E string is going to be 5, 6, 8. All right. Let's start from the low E string and do the same thing we did on the high E string. 5, 6, 8. And then 4. Yeah. And now put your middle finger on the 6th fret and just play that E flat Lydian dominant. Tritone. Sharp 11 is a tritone, right? Now this right here, starting from the A, is A altered scale. So A altered scale and E flat Lydian dominant are the same scale. And they're always a tritone away. That's important to remember. Tritone. You hear a lot about the tritone substitution, and we'll talk about it later. But so we got here is the altered scale, starting from A, which is a tritone away from E flat. That's E flat. That's an easy way to remember E flat Lydian dominant, or at least easy to apply. So for example, D flat 7 sharp 11. How would you play that? Yeah, G altered scale, right? Go ahead and play G altered.